The Clouds in the Suitcase. Chapter 1. The Day the Clouds Stopped Falling. It was a day unlike any other, or perhaps exactly like every other, except that the clouds did not fall. People looked up, waiting for the rain that had always come, but the clouds simply hung there, quiet, soft, still. No drizzle. No drops. No sudden shower against the windowpanes. Just clouds, hovering, as if they had forgotten how to let go. "It's strange," someone said, watching the sky. "Yes," someone else agreed, though no one could say why it felt strange. The clouds didn't speak. They didn't move. They only remained, their edges curling faintly, as if thinking or perhaps dreaming. By afternoon, people stopped watching. The sky stayed the same. The clouds stayed the same. At dusk, the clouds began to shift, not downward, not raining, but drifting slowly sideways, gathering toward a single point above an old house. At the end of a quiet street. The house had a slanted roof, a broken chimney, and a window that never closed quite right. No one lived there anymore, but the clouds seemed to know it. They circled above it, lowering themselves bit by bit, until they rested gently on the rooftop, like a blanket laid carefully over forgotten things. "I'm tired," one cloud thought, though it wasn't sure if clouds could feel tired. "I'm full," another whispered, though it wasn't sure what it was full of. A third cloud, smaller and rounder than the rest, looked at the others and said, "Maybe we don't have to fall anymore." The other clouds considered this. Not with words, but with slow, swirling movements, soft wisps brushing gently against one another. "I don't want to fall," one finally admitted. "Me neither," another agreed. And so they didn't. Night crept in, wrapping the house, wrapping the clouds, wrapping everything in a quiet that felt deeper than usual. The moon rose, casting a pale light across the rooftop, and the clouds sighed, a long, low sigh, as if releasing something they hadn't known they were holding. On the rooftop, the clouds began to gather closer together, their shapes blending, folding into each other, becoming a single soft mass. Below them, in the attic of the house, a suitcase sat. It was an old suitcase, its leather cracked, its brass clasps tarnished, its handle frayed. No one had opened it in years. No one had even touched it. But that night, the suitcase waited. It didn't know what it was waiting for. Suitcases rarely do. But still, it waited. And above, the clouds slowly lowered themselves, closer, closer, until their misty forms slipped through the cracks in the roof, drifting down into the attic, drifting toward the waiting suitcase. "I wonder if we can fit," one cloud mused, circling the suitcase, tracing its outline. "I wonder what's inside," another murmured, peering at the clasps. "I wonder if it matters." A third whispered, already starting to seep into the tiny space between the lid and the base. The suitcase creaked softly, as if waking from a long sleep. The clasps unlatched themselves, slowly, gently, as though remembering a forgotten promise. The lid opened, revealing not clothes, not papers, not belongings, but a deep, velvety darkness, stretching inward, wider than the suitcase could possibly hold. The clouds looked at one another, and without another word, they drifted inside. One by one, softly, quietly, they disappeared into the impossible depth, until nothing remained on the attic floor but a faint, lingering scent of rain. that never fell. Outside, the moon shone on the old house, on the quiet street, on the world that had watched the sky and found nothing falling. And in the attic, the suitcase closed itself, its clasps clicking shut, its leather softening, its presence becoming simply part of the dust. And the shadows, and the waiting. Chapter 2: The Journey to the Attic. Inside the suitcase, the clouds floated. They floated as they had never floated before, because this floating felt different, as though they were not floating through air, but through something softer, something deeper, something that carried them without needing to carry. The suitcase was bigger inside. Much bigger. There were no walls, no ceiling, no floor, only a vastness that gently pressed around them, like the inside of a thought that hadn't decided what it wanted to be. The clouds drifted through this space, silent, weightless, wondering. One cloud, the small, round one, looked around and asked, "Where are we?" Another cloud replied, "I think we're in the attic." A third cloud thought for a long while, then said, "Is the attic always like this?" No one answered, because no one really knew. Outside the suitcase, the attic sat quietly, dust collecting in corners, shadows settling in forgotten shapes, spiders weaving slow patterns that no one noticed. But inside, the clouds explored. They found shelves. Rows upon rows of shelves, stretching upward, outward, sideways, each filled with jars. The jars were labeled, though the writing was faded. Some labels read, "Tuesday's rain, September. First drizzle of spring." A drop that almost fell. The clouds floated closer, peering into the jars, seeing tiny drops inside, each shimmering softly, as if remembering. "I think these are old rains." One cloud whispered. "They're beautiful." Another sighed. "Do you think we'll end up in jars too?" The small, round cloud asked. The other clouds didn't answer, but hovered a little closer together, as if the thought made them colder. Farther into the suitcase, they found more shelves, these filled with bottles, each bottle holding a faint mist. The bottles were unlabeled, as if their contents hadn't yet decided what they were. One cloud touched a bottle with a soft wisp, and the mist inside swirled gently, forming a shape that looked almost like a raindrop, and then faded again. "I think these are the rains that never fell," the cloud said softly. The others nodded, or gave the sense of nodding, and floated quietly onward. At the very back of the space, they found a chair. It was an old chair, its cushion worn, its wood faded, but it stood tall, waiting, as if expecting someone. Next to the chair sat an umbrella. It was closed, leaning gently against the chair's leg, its fabric neatly folded, its handle curved like a quiet question. The clouds gathered around the umbrella, watching it silently. "I wonder why it's here," the small cloud mused. "I wonder if it's waiting for rain," another said. "Or maybe it's waiting for us," a third whispered. The umbrella did not move. It simply remained, patient, folded, present. The clouds floated closer, and one by one, settled softly around the chair, around the umbrella, forming a gentle circle, a quiet halo of mist. They didn't speak, because there was nothing to say. Outside the suitcase, the attic held its breath. Below the attic, the house stood still. Outside the house, the street slept under a sky that was missing its clouds. And inside the suitcase, the clouds rested, surrounded by jars of remembered rain, bottles of unfelt drizzle, and an umbrella that waited, without needing to know what it was waiting for. Chapter 3: Inside the Suitcase. Inside the suitcase, the clouds drifted. It was quiet here. Not the kind of quiet that feels empty, but the kind that feels full, as if silence itself were a room that gently wrapped itself around everything inside. The shelves stretched on, further than they could see, and yet somehow still close. Each shelf was filled with jars, and every jar held a drop. Some drops shimmered like pearls, some glowed faintly, and some were nearly invisible, as though they hadn't fully decided to exist. The small, round cloud hovered close to one jar, reading the faded label, "Rain over Forgotten Garden." "I don't remember that rain," the small cloud whispered. "Maybe it wasn't ours." Another cloud replied. They floated further. A jar labeled "A Drop That Got Lost" caught their attention. Inside it, a single drop trembled slightly, as if unsure whether it belonged there. "I wonder if we're supposed to be in jars too," the small cloud said softly. But no one answered. They passed shelves marked with years, with names of storms, with places they'd never heard of, the rain that never reached the desert, the mist that almost became fog, one lonely drizzle. Each label carried a weight the clouds couldn't name, a sense of something finished, but not quite complete. At the end of one long row, they found a narrow stairway. The steps were made of folded umbrellas, each resting quietly, as if dreaming of rain. The clouds descended, their mist curling around the steps, touching the fabric gently, leaving tiny damp marks that faded as quickly as they appeared. Below, they found another room. In this room were drawers. Hundreds of drawers. Each drawer had a brass handle, a tiny plaque, and inside were more drops, some dried, some waiting, some quietly humming to themselves. "I didn't know raindrops could hum," said the small cloud. "Maybe they don't." Another cloud replied, "Maybe we're the ones hearing it." They opened a drawer labeled "First Drop of a Forgotten Rain." Inside was a single drop, perfectly round, perfectly still. No one touched it. They only watched. At the center of the room stood a table, and on the table sat a single glass jar. Unlike the others, this jar was empty. No label. No lid. The clouds circled it, their mist swirling slowly. "Why is this one empty?" the small cloud asked. "Maybe it's waiting for us," said another. "Maybe it's ours," said a third. The clouds drifted closer, until their mist gently filled the jar, curling inside, settling softly, as though they had always belonged there. Outside the jar, the suitcase sighed. Not loudly. Not sadly. Just a soft, long breath, like the closing of a book no one remembered opening. The umbrella, still leaning near the chair, shifted slightly, as if listening. The chair remained still, its cushion worn, its wood quiet. And the clouds, inside the jar, inside the suitcase, inside the attic, inside the house, rested. They didn't know what they were waiting for. They didn't know if they were waiting at all. They only knew that for now, this was enough. Outside the suitcase, the attic returned to its stillness. The dust floated slowly through a single shaft of moonlight. The floor creaked softly, but did not move. And beneath the roof, the clouds settled deeper into their new home, silent, gentle, wrapped in the quiet of something that didn't need to be explained. Chapter 4: The Umbrella That Moved In. Inside the suitcase, the clouds floated, rested, drifted. Days passed, though inside the suitcase, there was no such thing as a day. Or perhaps every moment was a day, and every breath was a kind of night. The clouds no longer counted time. They no longer tried to remember what they had left behind, or what they might have been before the suitcase. They simply were. And then, one evening, or what felt like an evening, because the light inside the suitcase grew a little softer, a little warmer, something moved at the edge of the shelves. Something leaned, tilted, shifted. It was the umbrella. The umbrella, which had sat folded beside the chair, unopened, unmoving, silent, for as long as the clouds could remember. Which wasn't very long, and also forever. "I think the umbrella is moving," said the small, round cloud. "It hasn't moved before," another cloud replied. "Maybe it was waiting for something," a third mused. The umbrella leaned again, slightly, then rocked forward, then stopped. "I wonder where it's going," whispered the small cloud. The umbrella rocked forward once more, then tipped onto its curved handle, balanced, paused, and, very gently, rolled forward. It rolled slowly, gracefully, in a small circle at first, then a larger one, its fabric brushing softly against the suitcase floor. The clouds watched. No one spoke. The umbrella rolled past the chair, past the empty jar, past the shelves of labeled rain. It made a slow, careful arc, as if drawing a shape no one else could see. Then it rolled toward the clouds. "I think it's coming here," the small cloud whispered. "Yes," said another. "It's definitely coming here," said a third. The umbrella rolled to the very edge of the cloud's soft mist, then stopped. It stood upright, leaning slightly, as if listening. Then, with the smallest sound, a quiet click, the umbrella opened. It didn't open wide. Just enough. Its fabric stretched gently, folding outward in a soft curve, revealing the inside of itself, a hollow space, dark, lined with a faint shimmer, like the memory of rain. The clouds stared. The umbrella stayed open. No rain fell. "I wonder why it opened," said the small cloud. "Maybe it wants to catch us," said another. "Maybe it wants to join us," said a third. The umbrella remained open, quiet, waiting. The clouds floated closer. They circled the umbrella, drifting around its open canopy, curling their mist along the gentle curve of its fabric. "I think it's lonely," whispered the small cloud. "Maybe it's always been lonely," another cloud replied. "Maybe that's what umbrellas are for," mused a third. Slowly, softly, one by one, the clouds drifted into the umbrella. They nestled inside its open space, filling the hollow, settling into the folds. The umbrella's fabric cradled them, held them, wrapped them in a shelter that was neither inside nor outside, neither here nor there. The umbrella closed slightly, not fully, but enough to hold the clouds closer. It made no sound. It simply folded a little, drawing the clouds into a gentle, protective curve. And in that moment, the clouds felt something they had never felt before. Not rain. Not falling. But belonging. Outside the suitcase, the attic creaked softly, though nothing moved. The dust floated in slow spirals through the dim light. The old beams of the ceiling groaned quietly, as if remembering the weight of the roof above them. Below the attic, the house rested. Outside the house, the sky remained empty. No clouds. No rain. Only a quiet, endless stretch of blue, waiting. Inside the suitcase, the umbrella held the clouds close. And the clouds, wrapped in the folds of the umbrella, listened to a silence that felt full. A silence that felt like waiting. A silence that felt like staying. A silence that didn't need to be anything else. The umbrella did not close. The clouds did not leave. And the suitcase, sitting quietly in the attic, remained shut. Its clasps untouched. Its handle still. Its presence unchanged. But inside the folding fabric of the umbrella, inside the drifting mist of the clouds, something had shifted. Something had settled. Something had found its place. And outside, far beyond the attic, the sky waited. Not for rain. Not for clouds. But for whatever might come next. Chapter 5: The Memory of Rain. Inside the suitcase, time moved differently. Or perhaps it didn't move at all. Perhaps it simply stretched, folded, curled softly like the mist of the clouds resting within it. The clouds floated quietly, drifting among the shelves, past the jars and bottles, past the chair, past the umbrella that had opened just enough to hold them close. The umbrella remained partially open, cradling a few wisps of cloud inside its fold. The rest of the clouds drifted beyond it, exploring corners of the suitcase they had never noticed before. Every step, or drift, revealed something new, something familiar, something forgotten. There were shelves filled with tiny glass vials, each sealed with a cork. Inside each vial, a single drop shimmered faintly, suspended in a stillness that felt heavier than silence. The small, round cloud hovered close to one of the vials and read the tiny label, "Drop collected from a window that never opened." "I wonder why it never opened," whispered the cloud. "I wonder if the drop waited," replied another. "I wonder if it's still waiting," mused a third. They floated onward. Some vials were unlabeled, their contents cloudy, uncertain. Some labels were blank. Some had only a question mark scratched into the glass. Others had long, poetic names, "The rain that almost began." "A drop that dreamed it was snow." "Echo of a forgotten storm." The clouds drifted deeper into the suitcase. The further they floated, the more the shelves curved, bending inward, upward, downward, spiraling like a staircase that went nowhere but still moved. At the center of the spiral stood a fountain. It wasn't like fountains outside. This one had no water. No sound of splashing. Only a slow, steady mist rising from its empty basin. The small, round cloud approached the fountain and hovered above it. "I think this is where we used to fall," the cloud said softly. "Maybe it's where we stopped falling," said another. "Maybe it's where we learned to float," whispered a third. The mist curled around them, welcoming, familiar, strange. On the edge of the fountain sat a notebook. Its pages were damp, its cover warped, but it was open. Words filled the pages in soft, watery ink, blurring at the edges. The clouds leaned closer, reading together, "This is the memory of rain. This is the place where drops that never fell come to rest. This is the silence between storms. This is the waiting before the clouds decide again." The clouds were quiet. The umbrella, still half open, slowly tilted its canopy toward the fountain, as if listening. The notebook's pages turned themselves, one by one, though there was no breeze. Each page held more words, more faded ink, more sentences that felt like they had been written by the rain itself. Not every drop needs to fall. Not every cloud needs to pour. Some rains stay inside, some storms choose not to arrive. The clouds drifted closer to the notebook. The small, round cloud brushed its mist gently against a page, smudging the ink slightly. "I think we're part of this story," it said. "I think we've always been," replied another. The fountain's mist rose higher, swirling softly around the clouds, curling into loops and spirals, wrapping them in a gentle fog that felt like an embrace. Far above, the attic's beams creaked softly. Far below, the house remained still. Outside, the sky stretched wide and empty, waiting for clouds that never returned. Inside the suitcase, the clouds circled the fountain, circling the notebook, circling the memory of rain. They didn't know if they would ever fall again. But they knew, somehow, that here, in the quiet folds of the suitcase, in the soft shelter of the umbrella, in the lingering mist of the fountain, they had found something. Not rain. Not falling. But a stillness that felt like enough. The clouds remained near the fountain for a long time. Or what felt like a long time, though inside the suitcase, time did not measure itself in hours or minutes, but in softness, in stillness, in the weight of unfallen rain. The notebook closed itself gently, its damp pages pressing together with a quiet sigh. The fountain's mist faded slowly, lowering itself until only a faint shimmer remained at the basin's edge. The umbrella leaned closer to the fountain, its canopy widening just a little more, as if opening itself to the memory, to the mist, to the notebook's quiet words. "I think the umbrella remembers too," whispered the small, round cloud. "Maybe the umbrella never forgot," replied another. The clouds drifted from the fountain, moving deeper into the spiral of shelves. The jars and vials gave way to boxes, to crates, to small, unlabeled drawers. Each drawer held something unseen, something unspoken. They opened a drawer. Inside was a single raindrop, perfectly round, resting on a tiny cushion of velvet. Beside it, a folded slip of paper. The small cloud unfolded it carefully, revealing a message written in faint ink. This drop never fell because no one looked up to see it. The clouds were silent. They closed the drawer softly. They opened another. Inside was nothing. A blank space. A small plaque read, "Reserved for a future rain." "I wonder if we will fill it," whispered the small cloud. "Maybe we already have," said another. The clouds floated onward, past the drawers, past the boxes, deeper still into the winding shelves. The spiral narrowed, becoming a tunnel, a soft corridor of mist and memory. At the tunnel's end stood a door. The door was simple. Wooden. Closed. No handle. No keyhole. Only a small sign nailed to its center, "Rain not permitted beyond this point." The clouds paused. "Do we want to go further?" asked the small cloud. "I'm not sure," replied another. "What's beyond a place where rain isn't allowed?" mused a third. They hovered before the door. The umbrella rolled gently toward them, its curved handle gliding softly across the suitcase floor. It stopped beside the clouds, leaned slightly against the door, and waited. "I think the umbrella wants to stay here," whispered the small cloud. "Maybe we should stay too," said another. They drifted closer to the umbrella. They nestled against its fabric. The umbrella opened fully, its canopy spreading wide, wrapping the clouds in a quiet shelter beneath its gentle curve. The door remained closed. The sign remained. No one knocked. No one pushed. No one tried to enter. And slowly, softly, the clouds settled under the umbrella's open canopy. Outside the suitcase, the attic creaked once, then fell silent. Below the attic, the house remained still. Outside the house, the empty sky stretched on. No clouds. No rain. Only the quiet waiting of a world that didn't know the clouds had chosen not to fall. Inside the suitcase, under the umbrella, beside the closed door, among the shelves of jars and vials and drawers of forgotten rain, the clouds rested. They didn't fall. They didn't drift. They didn't move. They simply were. And in that stillness, in that softness, in that quiet weight of not rain, they felt something. That wasn't falling, wasn't pouring, wasn't releasing. But was, somehow, enough. Chapter 6. The Sky Notices. Outside the house, the sky remained wide and empty. No clouds. No rain. Only the stretch of blue that looked almost too large without its usual companions. people began to notice. They stood in their gardens, their streets, their windows, looking up, shielding their eyes from the sun that seemed bolder, louder, without clouds to temper it. "Where have they gone?" someone asked. No one answered. Birds flew across the sky, tracing invisible paths, their wings cutting lines that vanished as quickly as they appeared. A child pointed upward and whispered, "Maybe they've gone to sleep." And in a way, the child was right. Because inside the suitcase, in the quiet attic, the clouds slept. Curled beneath the umbrella's soft canopy, tucked between shelves of forgotten rain, wrapped in the folds of memories they didn't know they carried. But the sky noticed. And when the sky noticed, the wind noticed too. A small breeze rose from the edges of the horizon, a tentative gust, a soft question carried on invisible currents. "Where are they?" the wind asked. It circled the town, the hills, the rooftops. It stirred the leaves, the grass, the curtains that fluttered in windows left open. It drifted upward, downward, sideways, searching. And then it found the house. The old house with the slanted roof, the broken chimney, the window that never closed quite right. The wind hovered above the house. It circled the chimney once, twice, 3 times. It leaned against the window, nudging it gently. It whispered beneath the eaves. But the house said nothing. The wind curled around the roof tiles, slid along the gutters, brushed against the attic window. Inside the attic, the suitcase sat quietly. Its clasps remained closed. Its handle rested against the floor. Its leather softened by time. The wind tapped lightly at the window. Once. Twice. A third time. But the suitcase did not move. The clouds inside did not stir. The umbrella did not unfold further. The wind pressed its invisible face against the glass, listening. It thought it heard something. A faint murmur. A soft sigh. A quiet hum. But it could not understand. The wind circled the house again, lifting a few stray leaves from the ground, carrying a whisper through the branches of a nearby tree. Then it rose higher, curling above the roof, spinning slowly in place. The sky watched. And the wind whispered again, "Where have you gone?" Inside the suitcase, the clouds dreamed. They dreamed of rain they never fell, of puddles that never formed, of reflections that never rippled. They dreamed of skies they had once drifted through, but no longer remembered the shape of. They dreamed of falling, but not of landing. The umbrella held them gently, its fabric stretched just enough, its ribs curving like arms in a quiet embrace. The shelves leaned closer, as if listening to the dreams. The jars shimmered faintly in the soft suitcase light. And the suitcase itself seemed to hum, a deep, low hum, the kind of hum that belongs to things that have waited a long time, without knowing what they were waiting for. Outside, the wind circled once more, then drifted away, carrying its unanswered question across the empty sky. Inside the suitcase, the clouds began to stir, slowly, gently, as though waking not from sleep, but from a very long stillness. The small, round cloud unfolded a little more, stretching its mist toward the edge of the umbrella's canopy. "I think something is calling us," it whispered. "Maybe it's the wind," said another. "Maybe it's the sky," murmured a third. The umbrella shifted slightly, its fabric tightening, as if holding the clouds closer, protecting them from a sound that only the air could hear. The notebook near the fountain fluttered its damp pages again, though no breeze moved within the suitcase. A single word appeared on the open page: remember. The clouds floated closer, reading the word together. "Remember what?" asked the small cloud. "Maybe, remember rain," suggested another. "Maybe, remember the sky," added a third. They circled the notebook, their mist curling softly around its fragile spine, their shapes blending gently into one another. Above, the attic window rattled faintly in the wind. Below, the house creaked. Outside, the wind turned once more toward the house, spiraling downward, pressing against the windowpane. Inside the suitcase, the umbrella opened a little more, spreading its fabric until it formed a full dome above the clouds. The small cloud looked up at the umbrella. "Do you think we'll ever leave?" it asked. "I don't know," replied another. "I don't know if we need to," whispered a third. The umbrella remained still. The suitcase remained closed. The door marked "Rain not permitted beyond this point" remained shut. The fountain's mist glowed faintly in the suitcase's dim light. The jars on the shelves shimmered quietly. The drawers hummed softly to themselves. And the clouds settled once more beneath the umbrella's shelter, wrapping themselves in a stillness that felt almost like sleep, almost like waiting, almost like remembering. Outside, the sky stretched on, vast and empty, holding a space where clouds had once been, and might one day return. But inside the suitcase, inside the umbrella, inside the soft folds of remembered rain, the clouds remained. And that was enough. Chapter 7: The Decision Not to Return. Inside the suitcase, the clouds floated in a soft circle beneath the open umbrella. The umbrella's canopy stretched wide above them, curving like a sky that had folded in on itself. The small, round clouds stirred gently. "I wonder if we're supposed to stay here forever," it whispered. "Maybe," said another cloud. "Maybe forever isn't as long as we think," mused a third. The umbrella shifted slightly, its fabric creaking softly, like the sigh of something that had been holding itself still for too long. The shelves leaned closer, their jars shimmering faintly in the dim suitcase light. Each jar held a quiet glow, a soft hum, a memory of a rain that had fallen, or might have fallen, or dreamed of falling. The notebook near the fountain opened itself again, a single page fluttering outward. A line appeared across the page, written in damp, fading ink. You do not have to return. The clouds drifted closer, reading the words together. I wonder if that's a choice, whispered the small cloud. Or a permission, said another. Or simply a truth, added a third. The umbrella leaned lower, as if sheltering them more deeply beneath its curved canopy. The fountain's mist rose softly around them, swirling like slow breath, wrapping them in a hush that felt both old and new. Outside the suitcase, the attic creaked again. The wind brushed against the window. The sky waited above the house, wide and empty. Inside the suitcase, the clouds gathered around the notebook, curling their mist along its damp pages. A second line appeared beneath the first. It is enough to remain. The small cloud pressed closer, leaving a faint mark of moisture on the page. I think I like staying, it whispered. Me too, said another. I don't even remember the sky anymore, murmured a third. The umbrella's ribs tightened slightly, holding its fabric more snugly. The jars on the shelf shimmered again, casting soft reflections across the suitcase floor. The door marked "Rain not permitted beyond this point" remained closed. Its sign had not changed. Its wood had not aged. It simply waited, as doors often do, for nothing in particular. The clouds drifted toward the door, hovering just beyond the threshold of its shadow. I wonder what's behind it, whispered the small cloud. Maybe nothing, said another. Maybe everything, mused a third. They did not push it. They did not knock. They simply hovered there, listening. The umbrella rolled gently closer, resting its handle against the floor beside the door. I think the umbrella is staying with us, said the small cloud. I think the umbrella never wanted to leave, said another. I think we're all staying, whispered a third. And with that, the clouds drifted back beneath the umbrella's canopy, curling once more into the soft, protective curve of its fabric. The notebook's pages turned again, slowly, deliberately, until they reached the end. On the final page, a single word appeared: stay. The small cloud sighed, a soft release of mist, and settled deeper into the folds of the umbrella. Outside the suitcase, the attic grew quiet. Below the attic, the house remained still. Outside the house, the sky stretched on, waiting without expectation. Inside the suitcase, the clouds rested. And resting was enough. Inside the suitcase, the light dimmed a little more, though no lamp had ever glowed, no bulb had ever burned. It was the kind of dimming that belonged to endings that didn't really end, to pauses that stretched out until they simply became the new rhythm. The umbrella remained open. The clouds curled closer beneath its fabric, their mist softening, their shapes blending gently into one another. "I wonder if the sky still remembers us," whispered the small cloud. "Maybe it forgot," said another. "Maybe it never noticed we were gone," mused a third. The notebook closed itself with a quiet flutter. The fountain's mist faded until only a thin veil remained above the dry basin. The jars on the shelves stopped shimmering. The shelves leaned back into their places, straight and steady. The suitcase's walls felt closer now, not in a way that crowded, but in a way that felt like a room finding its true size. The clouds breathed together. If clouds could breathe. And in that breath, they felt the weight of staying settled gently around them, not heavy, not light, just exactly what it needed to be. Outside the suitcase, the attic fell into silence so deep that even the dust seemed to float more slowly. The wind passed once more along the roof, nudging the window, peering inward with invisible eyes. But it did not knock. It did not call. It only waited for a moment, then drifted on, carrying its unanswered question elsewhere. Inside the suitcase, the umbrella shifted slightly, its ribs creaking softly, its fabric sighing into place. The clouds remained. They did not drift. They did not fall. They did not leave. And they did not need to. "I'm glad we stayed," whispered the small cloud. "Me too," said another. "I don't know what we were waiting for," mused a third. "Maybe we were waiting to stop waiting," the small cloud replied. The umbrella tilted just enough to fold them closer together, to tuck them deeper beneath its curved shelter, to hold them in a quiet that no longer asked for anything. The door marked "Rain Not Permitted Beyond This Point" remained closed. Its sign faded a little. Its wood softened a little. But it did not open. And it no longer needed to. The suitcase rested. The umbrella rested. The clouds rested. And outside, the sky stretched wide and empty, not waiting, not searching, not needing. Just sky. And inside the suitcase, inside the umbrella, inside the folds of unfallen rain, the clouds rested, and resting was enough. And somewhere beyond the attic, beyond the house, beyond the sky, a breeze carried a quiet whisper, a soft exhale of air, a sound that wasn't quite a sound. It carried the whisper far, and gently, and slowly, until it faded into nothing, or into everything. And in that fading, there was peace.